what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on internet radio. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
All right, and welcome back to another adventure here on Southern Sense Live on our homepage with the southernsense.net, as well as up on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and half a dozen other places. I don't know. I think we got ourselves up on Rumble also today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We have a great guest coming in. Every 2 weeks is Mark Tapscott from the Epoch Times. He'll be joining us at the top of the hour. And today we have a new guest, Jay Beeber. No, not Justin Bieber, Jay Beeber. He's with the National Motorist Association. And this is a group I had not heard about before, but has been around for some time. And hopefully we'll have everything going. And hopefully we have our co-host back with us for once in a while. Hello, Curtis.
Hey, I'm telling you, I was on the phone with Xfinity because I had a phone problem. And, you know, it takes forever. I'm trying to get this thing done with them before the show started. And wow, it was close.
Well, last week you had your hands full of as you were playing around with the toilet.
Oh, man. Got that worked until 10 o'clock that night.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Well, like I was telling our audience, we got great guests. We got Mark Tapscott joining us at the start of the hour. And then we have a new guest, Jay Beeber, with the National Motorist Association. And this is a group that's been around for 2 decades. And this is the first I was hearing about them. I don't know why, because I normally have my finger on the pulse of everything. And hey, it looks like we're going to have an exciting show.
Good.
There's so much going on. I don't even know where to start with what has been going on this week. It has been like nonstop. I mean, between Trump, it's possible he may have his New York case tossed out. And
Hopefully.
I'm sorry, folks. Everyone keeps on calling him a convicted felon. And under New York state law, you are not a convicted felon until the sentence has been declared.
That's
until
right.
the judge actually files the paperwork. So he can throw the gavel and say guilty and sentence you, say, I don't know, for 2 weeks behind bars. But unless that paperwork is filed and accepted, you're still not a felon.
And, you know, I think that's the same here in Florida because, or maybe wherever this Hernandez, I don't know if you remember the football player, Hernandez used to play for the Gators. And
Yeah.
he ended up being convicted for murdering 2 people. Well, he committed suicide, but there's a reason why. And it was that same reason because of the fact that he hadn't been sentenced yet. He was in jail, but he hadn't been sentenced. And had he been sentenced, then his wife wouldn't have got any of that benefits and stuff that he had set aside.
Wow.
Yep. So he killed himself while he wasn't a convicted felon yet.
Wow, that's interesting. That's something I did not know.
A couple of states have that. Yeah.
Wow. Well, for those that listen to the show, know that we start off each show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And sometimes it's not always a first responder. It's not always someone in the military. It just happens to be an everyday American who, by their actions and by the way they live their life, proved to be extraordinary. And this is a friend of yours, Curtis, and a friend of our show.
Adianís Morales.
Well, this dedication is a little bit different. She recently passed away this past September. And just a few months before she passed away, she was still out there, a good patriot, working to move America forward. Adianís Morales was a devoted wife, mother, daughter, sister, pastor, and a passionate advocate for her community. And this is coming from her obituary. She was married to Joey Robles Levy. Adianís poured her heart into raising 3 wonderful boys, Gordiani, Giandre, and Gianmark. Adianís embraced her role as a mother to her added daughters, Rebecca and Naomi, and cherished every moment spent with her grandchildren, Ariella, Amelia, Levi, and Joshua. Her family was her greatest joy, and she devoted her life to nurturing and supporting them, instilling values of love, faith, and resilience. Her unwavering faith was the bedrock of her life, guiding her in all of her endeavors and inspiring her family to embrace their own spiritual walk with Jesus Christ. Adianís had an extraordinary gift for making everyone feel seen and loved, whether it was through her warm hugs or her infectious laughter. Her family was her greatest treasure, and she dedicated herself to nurturing them with boundless love, guidance, and fear of the Lord. Adianís was a force within her community, recognized for her tireless commitment to serving others. As a local pastor since 2008, she inspired countless individuals through her teachings and outreach efforts, bringing faith and community. Her political journey was equally impactful. She served as a staffer for Senator Rick Scott in 2018 and worked with the Republican Party of Florida in 2019. And she was the regional director for Trump Victory in 2020. Adianís held a special place in her heart for the Hispanic and Christian communities, passionately encouraging them to understand political platforms and advocate for their God-given rights. She even ran as a candidate for the U.S. Congress in one of Florida's largest Hispanic voting districts, embodying the very spirit of service and leadership. In her role as president of the Orlando Republican Women Federated and as the Faith and Freedom Coalition director for Florida and Puerto Rico, Adianís empowered and inspired those around her to engage in the political process. Her achievements were not just titles, but reflections of her dedication to uplifting her community, instilling hope in others. Adianís Morales leaves behind a legacy of love, faith, and a fierce commitment to making a difference. While her presence will be profoundly missed, her spirit will continue to inspire all of us to fight for what we believe in, cherish our loved ones, and live out our faith with courage and conviction. And Curtis, did you want to say a few words for your friend?
Yeah, she was very, very patriotic. She loved this country. She loved her ministry. We became friends when I met her in Tallahassee a year ago. We used to go there like almost every other week to go before the House, or the Senate to, put our 2 cents in on certain bills and whatnot. And I got to know her to the point that when she ran for U.S. Congress, she kicked off her campaign here, at our home. So, I will miss her. I did see her a couple of months ago because I hadn't heard from her in a while. And I was glad to see her at this event down in Orlando. And she pulled me and Carolyn aside to tell us that she's had cancer, and November 2023, she was told she had 4 months to live. But I mean, she lived like long before, after that. But I never heard from her again, even though I did call and leave text messages. But apparently she was deceased during some of that time. I only wish that I had gotten her husband Joey's phone number.
Okay. Well, for the dedication, I'm going to show a clip in a news interview. And she passed away in September, and this was in June. So, Adianís, this is in memory of you.
Hispanic voters and faith leaders are sharing their top concerns that are pressing their minds. So let's introduce some of our panel here for more insight. We're joined by Arizona Implementation Director for American Federation for Children, Esli Montenegro, Faith and Freedom Coalition, Florida, and Puerto Rico Director, Adianís Morales, and Faith and Freedom Coalition Georgia Hispanic Director, Juan Garcia. Welcome to all three of you. I'm going to start with you, Esley. You're from Arizona. You're the daughter of immigrants. You say that you're mostly concerned about education, opportunity, as well as family values. What's happening in Arizona, and what are your positions?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. So as an Arizona Hispanic Latina, I grew up seeing my parents fight for the American dream. And now when I talk to thousands of parents, they are waking up to realize that they too want God, family, freedom in their lives. And education is the level, it's what levels the playing field and breaks generational poverty.
Yeah, people are seeing, I hear that a lot. People say the American dream is slipping away. I want to go to you, Adianís. You're from a district that is 68% Hispanic, mostly Puerto Ricans, which is interesting to see the numbers of Puerto Ricans that are switching parties, traditionally very Democratic. What's happening?
Well, there is a new thing happening because, as you said, the district is 68% Hispanic, and it's the first time in the history of Florida that we have 50% of that 68% vote Republican for the first time. So Hispanics are waking up. Hispanics are understanding that we are very conservative and that the Democrat Party does not represent us.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, for all those wondering what that background noise is, the Faith and Freedom Coalition is just behind them. Obviously, someone's singing, so it's a little bit tougher to hear. So, Juan, speak up as loud as you can. You say immigration and the economy are the big issues for Hispanics.
Correct. That is the main issue.
That's for Juan. Can you hear me, Juan?
I hear you. Yes, those are the main issues right now for Hispanics. In addition to that, I think when we go to the underlying issues, the most important thing is our family, the future for our kids. And I was just talking to a group of Hispanics that we brought into this convention, and the main worries that they have is what type of nation are we going to give to our next generation? And unfortunately, we're dealing with disinformation, which is the word that is coming in use against us, but the reality is that most of the mainstream media for Hispanics are left-lenient. They're giving them the wrong information, and they're basically sequestered by the lies they get. When they start listening to the true news, to the true information, they're now opening their eyes. That's why we're seeing this revival all over the nation of Hispanic communities leaning towards the right and voting for the right candidates. I am very concerned about that. Let me give you a simple example. I talked to thousands of Hispanics all over the nation, and when we talk about democracy, they believe, many of them, especially the new voters, they believe that the Democratic Party is the one that represents democracy. And they've been efficient in complaining and saying that they're defending democracy, and if you don't vote for them, democracy is going to be lost. And their fear is, hey, we moved to the U.S., we are coming to a nation that really values democracy, we don't want to lose it. So when we explain to them, hey, the democracy or the Democratic Party is just a name, it doesn't represent only democracy, they open their eyes and they start voting the right way.
Yeah, well, you're standing just in front of a sign that says faith and freedom, and the ability to work hard, and the American dream. All those are Hispanic values. You guys are expressing that very well, and we'll see if that plays out in the next election. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us today.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known sure when our time has come, we gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace.
Okay, and we're back. Curtis had to step away for a second, so he'll be joining us very shortly. We have a lot to talk about before our first guest comes in, and I came across this article in the Epoch Times, or as Mark Tapscott says, the Epoch Times. It's a very interesting article by Gerald Heinrichs, and it's an opinion viewpoint. But something he says in there, it rings a bell. It just really does resonate with us. He's quoting from an editorial that was written up on X, formerly Twitter, by a gentleman by the name of Jason at Bitcoin for Freedom. And Jason wrote this great editorial, and it had a lot of me nodding my head a lot, because when I talk to my friends about Donald Trump, you get the people that can't stand him because he's bombastic, and people that understand what he's doing and saying, but they also like him because the way he's moving our nation forward. And Jason wrote, and this was back in October, he wrote, "I can't stand Donald Trump. He's braggy. He insults people for no reason, and he's just a brutal personality. But my mind is made up. I'm voting for him, and why?" And he has these bullet points. And the first one he puts down, he puts Americans and their well-being first. Kamala will not. He will bring Elon Musk into his cabinet to be the efficiency czar and get rid of waste. That alone may be the best single reason to vote for him. And they're talking about not just Elon Musk, but Vivek Ramaswamy. And they're looking at possibly $5 billion that they will cut out of the federal budget for waste in government. And that's also a fantastic reason. Let's bring Curtis back in. Curtis, I was talking about an editorial I read in the Epoch Times, and he in turn is quoting an editorial that was written up on X by a gentleman by the name of Jason about why he was voting for Donald Trump, even though he didn't like him. And he quoted the first one that Trump puts Americans first and Kamala Harris won't. No, she'll put herself first. That he's bringing Elon Musk in as the efficiency czar. He's also bringing in Robert Kennedy Jr. into the cabinet to make America healthy again. And he finally will get to the bottom of why our food companies are destroying the health of children. Because if you look at today, we have an epidemic of people that are overweight. And when I look at people and what they're eating, they're getting pre-prepared food, packaged food. They're no longer making their own food themselves. They'll hit a fast food joint rather than just going and buying some fresh chopped meat and making your own hamburger. You know, all these additives and the crap that's being put in there, food coloring to make it look more appetizing, rather than taking the time to make yourself your own meal. I mean, every
Yeah, I
once in a while,
thought
I'm guilty of doing that, but you look at how people are now so much more obese and not healthy, and higher incidences of cancer.
from my understanding, these industries, they go through great lengths to make these ingredients in the food or the drinks addictive, for one thing. And once you get hooked, it's hard to, what's that commercial? You can't just eat one. But that's part of the problem. And then you just have people that just love to eat, sweets or something like that. Now, I thought during the Obama administration, Michelle was supposed to be on top of all the
That
food,
didn't go over too well. That didn't go over too well.
no, it didn't.
Sorry
But
about that.
that was supposed
No, it
to
didn't.
be, yeah, that's supposed to be her claim to fame. I did something about the foods. She did get some labeling change, like I think on certain drinks or even in the soups, when it came to servings, she made sure that the ingredients and the calories content was for one serving, and it wasn't before. They would fool you,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I admit, I love to cook. I really do. And when I have the time and my back is not give me all heck, I'll make my own pasta sauce. I'll jar my own pickles. I'll make some vegetables and I'll jar them. You know, I'll make a whole different types of things, soups and stuff. And a lot of times I'll make maybe even a lasagna or stuffed peppers and I'll freeze them. So, when I want something and I don't have the time to make it, I can reach into my freezer, but I know what the ingredients are that are in it. Now, I'm not a health freak, but I just also know that I don't want to eat something that someone else has made that's been sitting on a store shelf. It's not going to taste as good as when I make it myself. And you can tell the difference when someone takes the time to make something compared to someone picking something up on the run. You know,
Mhm.
And it's just plain healthier because I know what ingredients are going in there. There's not a lot of extra additives. It's not a lot of extra salt or sugar, things like that. You know, so
Preservative.
Americans have gotten away from doing it ourselves to doing what's easy, what's fast and easy. That box of Stovers, the picture looks so great, but once you open it up and taste it, it doesn't taste homemade. I'm sorry. It's just me. That's me.
Mhm.
Um, my new husband, he loves fast food, and I avoid it because I know it's not healthy for you. Once in a blue moon as a treat, fine, but not every single day. I'm sorry. He's got a heavy sweet tooth. I don't, and yet I love to bake. I'll do my own jarring. I'll do my own cooking. I'll do my own baking. Once in a while, I'll make my own bread. It's me, but that's my way of doing things. And maybe that's
Mhm.
why I don't weigh a ton. I'm a little overweight, yes. Maybe 10, 15 pounds I could lose easily. But hey, I'm not a 20-year-old, so I can't go jogging anymore. I can't go lifting weights. Can't do a lot of stuff I used to do. But living healthier, it's up in an individual choice. And if we have someone there that is looking out for us and making sure that the ingredients that are going into the prepackaged food are healthy, then it might encourage people to eat healthier then and be healthier. But we have a high instance of cancer, especially in young people. Why young people today? Why today and why not 100 years ago? Because people ate more natural food. So maybe there is
Well,
a big thing to this.
also understand that the food pyramid that they came out with in I think the 70s or something like that, changed the way we ate. And after that food pyramid came out, people started having all kind of health issues. All
Yeah, they
kind.
kind of like got it upside down.
So Robert F. Kennedy's supposedly he's going to change all that. And I suppose a new food pyramid will be put forth.
Yeah, they did get some certain things. I remember reading an article about it, but it was just something that when I was read it, it's just things I naturally felt I was going to add to my diet. I had a doctor at one point, tell me I should eat kale 3 times a day. I'm sorry, if you eat the same thing 3 times a day, every day, you're going to be completely adverse to ever eating it again.
And what was the point of that?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. And it turns out that leafy green vegetables, if you have certain conditions, like I'm on a blood thinner, they're not the best thing for you because they also make your blood thinner too. If you're already on a blood thinner and you eat something like that, it's not going to be good for you. It's like now they're telling you coffee is good if you have a heart condition. Well, I know if I ever drink a cup of coffee, I end up going into palpitations. So I don't know where some of this stuff is coming from. They would tell you at one point monosaturated fats or whatever you want to call them were good for you. Now they're saying they're bad. I like to cook with extra virgin olive oil. And if I need something for like a vegetable, I'll use coconut oil. But that's me. Or even grapeseed oil. I just don't like those manufactured oils. But that's the way I eat. And maybe I'm thinking along the same lines as Robert Kennedy. And maybe that's what we need Americans to start to do. Look at their diet and like take a real good look at it and decide what's healthy for you and what's better for you. I mean, Twinkies are great. I used to live off of Kit Kats and Twinkies when I was a kid. But as a kid, you could do it because you burned all that sugar and fat off. But today, you can't do that. But going on to this editorial that this guy Jason wrote, he goes, I'm sick of the way the media has continuously lied about Donald Trump and the incessant racism claims. Some of the stuff he writes in there just says, yes, this is all the reasons why Trump is now being elected, being embroiled in foreign wars. Oh, let's get started on that one. Bubblehead, bubble brain, as my husband calls him, Biden has now gotten us embroiled in Ukraine to the point where he unilaterally declared war on Russia. And America, the media is not talking about this. And the fact that Putin hasn't retaliated to the extent that I expect him to, with the direct attack on the United States. But what Biden has done, when Putin had said on Saturday that if Ukraine used any of these weapons provided by a nuclear-powered nation, such as the United States or the United Kingdom or France or Germany, against Russia in Russia's own land, if it crossed the border into Russia and hit Russia in the heart of Russia, it would be deemed as an attack by that nuclear-powered nation on Russia, and it will be deemed a declaration of war. And when Biden turned around to Ukraine and told Zelensky it's okay to use the intermediary ballistic missile on Russia, in Russian soil, Biden then declared war on Russia. He bypassed the Congress. He has violated the Constitution, had not gone to before Congress asking for a declaration of war before he allowed Ukraine to use our firepower in Russia. And he did not notify the UN. Now, the United States is the one that initiated that treaty with the UN. So, in essence, Biden has declared war on Ukraine. And with that, we're going to bring our guest in, Mark Tapscott. Good afternoon, Mark. How are you doing?
How are you guys?
All right.
We were just talking about we're talking about Biden declaring war on Russia. And I do a show with this gentleman, Dan Perkins, called Moms Across America on Wednesdays. And this was our topic. And when I said that, it's like everyone turned around, threw their hands up in the air, said, yes, finally, someone's talking about this.
Yeah.
And then I heard it being spoken about on Newsmax last night. I'm saying, yes, finally, someone is talking about it and recognizing that Biden has thrown us into World War III. The fact that Putin hasn't turned around and fired back at us yet, to me, has me astonished. He's saying words, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And we've got, 58 days to go before Trump is sworn in?
something like that. I'm not so sure I'd call it declaring war on Ukraine, but it certainly is attempting to leave Trump with
A mess.
a really, really bad situation in the Ukraine that could very easily become something like a world war.
Yeah, because now we hear that I heard yesterday it was the United Kingdom and France were telling Zelensky, okay, use our weapons too.
Really? I had not heard that.
I haven't heard
And
that either.
this came across through Newsmax yesterday, and I'm saying, no. Please tell me that they just did not do the same thing that Bubblehead just did.
Yeah.
And
That's really surprising. And also Biden's telling them that they can, or that we're going to provide the specific anti-personnel mines, landmines.
yeah, not anti-tank, anti-personnel landmines that have been banned in 160 other nations.
Yeah. So I'm beginning to wonder if maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to have him resign and Harris fill out the rest of his term. Just tell her, hey, don't touch anything. Just sit there.
Stay in Hawaii, stay vacationing in Hawaii, and we'll just make a temporary White House there in Oahu.
Yeah.
So don't come back. We'll name you president. So you'll be the first female president.
Yeah, I still
touch anything.
I still think it's his staff that's doing all this. I don't think he could got a clue what's going on.
Too. Yeah. Yeah, I suspect that there's probably 2 or 3 folks in the senior White House staff that really, they call the strings,
pulling the strings. Yeah.
Pull the strings.
My question was on Wednesday is why is Mike Johnson so quiet about this? Why isn't he screaming at the White House going, you bypassed the House. Only the House can give you the articles of war. You have to come before us to request that. Why did you take that power away from us? Why isn't Mike Johnson saying anything?
I'm not sure that he's not saying something behind the scenes, but even if he was standing on top of the White House screaming at the top of his lungs, I'm not sure that, Biden would hear him. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. The guy is, he's going to do what he's going to do. And Mike Johnson, he's got a budget bills, I should say, to get through. He's got to finally confirm, just how big a slight majority he's going to have to work with in the 119th. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate too.
Well, this is something that I found very curious. Your friend Matt McGregor put it in the Epoch Times yesterday that the House has elected a center-left New Democratic Coalition chair. So it's more like
That's
Blue
news
Dog.
to me.
And this is in your own paper.
Yeah. Mark, read your paper.
Wednesday, they elected Representative Brad Schneider, a Democrat out of Illinois, to lead the effort to push for moderate policies that the House caucus promotes in the 119th Congress.
Yeah.
So we may be seeing Blue Dog Democrats siding with Republicans, possibly.
Well, there's the Blue Dog Democrats are, shall we say, all but non-existent, at least in the 118th Congress. Snyder's, I'm not real familiar with him, but what I do know about him is he's certainly not AOC by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank heaven.
Yeah. But I mean, what else can they do? They were so summarily and totally rejected by the voters, all up and down, the demographic lineup, that I'm surprised that they're not making many more moves like that. And I'm sure we will be seeing that especially in the next couple of weeks. But they got to get with it and get honest and look in the mirror and say, boy, we screwed up.
Well, here's something a little bit, because you mentioned that the people going crazy now because Trump has been elected on the left. This was in the Free Beacon. Yeah, the Washington Free Beacon. It was
Yeah.
on November 11th. They wrote an article about the State Department holding therapy sessions for the employees that were completely freaked out because Trump was elected. I mean, these are supposed to be nonpartisan government workers. And this was a duly, freely elected man to the White House, a free election. We hold these elections every year, every 4 years for the president, every 2 years for Congress. And so we do this every year. So, elections have consequences.
Yeah.
And yet they were so traumatically damaged that they had to have therapy sessions. But wait, it's not the first time. They did it in May of last year when an email went out using the wrong pronouns.
Yeah, and it's not just the State Department. The Open the Books folks today, I just did a piece on it in PJ Media, actually. Just did a report on the fact that under Biden and Harris since 2021, the feds, not just the State Department, but HHS and a bunch of the others, have issued $273 million worth of grants to study, quote unquote, misinformation. And that included one for creating escape rooms for staff who were shaken up and disturbed by misinformation. Now, I'm sorry, but that just ain't gonna fly with most Americans,
Bunch of snowflakes.
Snowflakes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it begs to differ now, because if you have government workers that are so traumatically damaged because Trump is now elected president, who's going to carry out the policies that he institutes? Because if they can't handle the fact he's elected, how are they going to handle the duties he passes down to them?
Annie, that is a very good question, and it goes to the heart of what I think is the biggest challenge that RFK at HHS, if he's confirmed as secretary, and Musk and Ramaswamy with the DOGE. I can't call it dog or Dodge; that just doesn't work for me. But dog, the to reduce spending by $2 trillion. The biggest problem that they're going to run into is the fact that the career civil service is all but invulnerable from being held accountable. And the thing that really has, especially the bureaucrats, up in arms and terrified is the fact that Trump has talked about bringing back Schedule F, which was the measure that he had during the last 6 or 7 months of his first term that made it easier to fire career employees.
Now, what is Schedule F?
A knockdown, drag out fight over that, because if you take away the invulnerability of bureaucrats, that's gonna hurt. Hang on just 1 second. My chocolate lab is demanding that I let him in. I'll be right back.
Folks, this is live. You cannot make that up. Oh, but our pets are our children.
Mine are outside. Now,
I'm obviously working from home today.
My understanding is that Trump plans to break up these big bureaucracies and spread them across the country so they're not so centralized. And
people have been talking about doing that for a long time, Curtis.
He can do it, though.
If
anybody could do it, he can do it.
Yeah, they tried that with the Department of Agriculture, I believe, at one point. Yeah. And now, what is Schedule F? Because this is something I had not heard about.
Well, it's an executive order, basically, is what it comes down to. The president does have some administrative leverage when it comes to civil service management procedures. Not a lot, but some. And I know about this because during the Reagan administration, I worked at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management as a Reagan appointee. OPM manages the civil service. And he can make it somewhat easier. They can also do things like implement reductions in force procedures, which give you the ability to eliminate positions. And when there's not a position, then there's no need for a person, is literally the logic. So they do have some ability to do that. And if they can persuade Congress, which I think they will, to do some things like relocate maybe the Department of Transportation to maybe that small little town in Ohio that had so much trouble with the railroad,
Yeah.
But seriously, I mean, they moved a good bunch of the Department of Agriculture out to Kansas City, and that seems to have worked pretty well. And it just makes sense to have NASA, for example, rather than here in Washington. Why not at Cape Canaveral, or all of it in Houston, or, in the Alabama, the fort down there where they have a lot of Huntsville, a lot of stuff going on. Or why not have the Department of Commerce in New York, or Chicago?
Well, what got me about civil servants, and I was upfront with it when I was married to my first husband, and some friends wanted me to work at the base. You have to go and become civil service,
right?
And me, I'm a go-getter. I just can't sit still. And having
Are you surprised to hear that?
And having been a business owner and a manager, I just couldn't take the civil service mentality because I was seeing things that were being done that was just labor intensive, but actually nothing was being done at the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And I would make a comment, well, if I were to work here, I would change this, this, and this and make it more efficient. Oh, you can't do that. Right. You're not allowed to. No, you can't. You can't change anything. Everything has to stay the same. And then what drove me over the top, which said I would never be a civil servant, except I was a cop. But I said, what drove me over the top is when they unionized.
Yeah.
Why would government? You have so many protections already attached to the job. What do you need a union for?
Well, that's why your question is so good, because the career civil service that we have today was created literally in 1883 with passage of the Pendleton Act. And it was to end the spoils system where everybody's job depended upon political patronage, and to create a professional career service that would carry out the policies directed by the president based on the election results. In other words, you may not like the results of the election, but your job as a civil servant is to carry out the agenda that the president directs the civil service to do. But in the last 30, 40 years, after JFK issued the executive order that allowed federal unions to be organized, it's gotten steadily much more liberal and Democrat and insulated from accountability in any form. And what Trump did at the end of his term, the guy who was his Office of Management and Budget Director, Russell Vought, who I hope's coming back, came up with this Schedule F that made it easier, not easy, but easier to either fire or transfer career employees who were standing in the way of presidential policies. And they'll have to do that again, and they'll have to get serious about it, because the unions and Democrats in Congress and the media are going to just flay them alive for allegedly destroying the government.
I'm hoping to see a complete turnover of employees. I mean, if Trump comes in, let's see those resignations or those retirement papers hit the bin basket.
Yeah.
A lot of people I think will throw in the retirement papers, and maybe we can get some fresh faces in there, because that's what we need. And it really scares me, the fact that he wants to do so many changes, but you've got so many cogs that are going to get jammed into.
Yeah.
And once those cogs stop, then everything stops and we're back to square one. What do you do when you can't move this person out of that position? What do you do when that person that's in that position refuses to do the job, which is what you're going to see?
Well, that's why you need Congress to be on your side, because Congress can do whatever Congress wants. And if you have, a bunch of recalcitrant civil servants, their jobs can be abolished. Congress can do that. Well, we haven't had a Congress with the guts to do that in a long time, but maybe we do now.
Well, we have my representative, Nancy Mace, doing up a firestorm.
Yes.
And she is 100% right, but I'm seeing her vilified in the media. Now, I don't always agree with her. There's a couple of times where I kind of like, Nancy, you're kind of like a little off beam here. And I call the office and say, hey, let's bring her back off the moon ship here and bring her back to Earth. But she is 100% right about, if you're a biological male, you do not belong in the bathroom with a woman.
Yeah. And
now,
vice versa.
And here she is with the personal experience of abuse and rape. And she's saying, I want to know that if I'm going into the restroom, I'm going to be safe.
Annie, the thing that amazes me about all that is that it became an issue to begin with. I'm surprised Hakeem Jeffries did not go to Sarah McBride and say, look, don't try it. Don't go into the women's bathroom, because it's exactly that kind of woke insanity that lost the election for the Democrats. That's why Brad Snyder is now going to be running the Democratic conference rather than AOC.
And you see everyone else, the media is going ape over this.
Yeah. They haven't figured it out yet.
They haven't. They have not. And what is happening now, you're seeing MSNBC and CNN are tanking. Yep. You're seeing their stocks go down too.
Yep.
And the wokeness is not working. It's not working at all. I mean, look at the Jaguar, what they're getting when they're hit with their commercial. I mean, they have a commercial promoting Jaguar, but it had no cars in it.
Yeah.
Nothing they were doing had anything to do with cars. But I think the American public has woken up and smelling the coffee, and this election was a perfect example. And the backlashes, but I got to admit, Matt Gaetz did the right thing when he stepped down from the nomination. He saw the firestorm and he says, listen, it's now making the whole story about me and not about the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the smart thing to do. And now you got the left and they're doing a 180. Oh, Pam Bondi, she's the greatest thing since sliced white bread.
That'll change. That will change. She'll be confirmed. And I'm pretty confident that Pam Bondi is going to be pretty tough, much tougher than probably some of the folks that are entrenched in the Department of Justice today are thinking she will be.
See, my husband and I were hoping for Trey Gowdy. I mean, he would have been an awesome pick. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to complain with Pam Bondi. I'm not.
She'll be good.
But I have to say that Matt Gaetz did the right thing, but he's not done. We want to see him pop up somewhere. Yeah. I mean, he'll probably end up being nominated to a position that doesn't require the Senate to confirm him.
Yeah. Either that or he'll go ahead, Curtis. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Annie mentioned something about the ratings going down for, MSNBC and all those guys. Do you think that's why Morning Joe went to Mar-a-Lago, because of ratings?
Nah, that's not why, Curtis. No way.
He's getting a lot of pushback.
Your tongue is about to come out of your cheek when you said that. The thing that surprised me about that, I mean, Joe Scarborough was a fairly conservative Republican when he was a member of the House of Representatives. And he goes up, and becomes part of the media and just...
He lost his mind.
He lost his mind. His soul. But the fact that they would come down and talk to Trump, you have to give them credit. At least, as she put it, at least as she put it, we've got to talk to him. That's more than most of the people at CNN or the rest of MSNBC will do. They won't even talk to him.
No,
at least they acknowledge the fact, Mel, maybe we need to hear a different perspective.
Yeah. Now, if we can only get The View to do that, but
it's not going to happen.
I mean, but you have to admit, it does give us entertainment. I mean, what started off as something about pop culture and, the things that housewives talk about, became now this political, I don't know, docudrama, if you want to call it that, that only you, if you're ultra liberal, will you understand it. But we can sit back and have a really good laugh at it. I mean, I didn't know they were going to turn into a comedy routine.
No, I don't think they did either. And that's part of the problem.
Oh, man. But one of the things I also caught is that the Senate Republicans made a deal with the Democrats about judicial selections. Now, what's going on with this? Is there something that I'm not seeing that the Republicans are holding aside for?
Well, no, this is a good thing in my view. And here's why I say that. We have 60 days of a lame duck Congress. The Senate is controlled by the Democrats, but they know they've got very little time. So at least theoretically, they could tell the Republicans, hey, buddy, you don't have anything to say about anything we do until January 4th or January 3rd, actually, when the new Congress comes in. So we are going to shove through every nomination that we can possibly get through. And we're going to pass every law that Biden asked us to that we possibly can. We're going to leave this place with our marks everywhere. But they didn't do that. And the reason they didn't do that is because the system, the Constitution set up, forces, even today, still to some degree, forces the parties to compromise. The Democrats know they can't do what I just described because they're going to be the minority in the next Congress, and they would be setting a precedent that would hurt them in the next Congress. So they've got to be at least giving the semblance of being reasonable. And what they did is they agreed not to, try to push through every judicial nomination they can. They're going to just do district judges rather than appellate judges. If I'd been doing the deal, I would have said, no, I'd rather you not do district judges because they're going to be on the bench longer. I'd let them focus on appellate judges, but that's me. So I think this is a good thing. It restrains the Senate Democrats in their final days of having a majority from trying to shove everything down everybody's throat. And that's a good thing.
All right.
You didn't expect that, did you?
No. But you're talking about appellate judges. Judge Marchant turned around and is playing the Trump game again. Now, this is something that we had discussed. I don't know, was it with you or on the last show, that the longer they hold this trial case over Trump's head and they say, we're not going to do anything until he's out of office, that basically makes that judge pulling the strings of the presidency. Because if the president does anything that the judge does not agree with while he's in office, what will the consequences be? What can that judge do to him? Say, all right, well, I changed my mind. I'm going to go press forward now. Or that when you come out of office, the penalty is going to be twice as hard now. That judge has a huge amount of power over the office of the president.
I don't know that that's how it would function. What I suspect, and I haven't heard the latest reports on it today, but the president's lawyers were going to make a motion, I think, to dismiss, and I won't be surprised if the judge grants it. And this thing is over with. If Bragg says we're going to wait until he's finished his term and then we're going to do it. There are so many things that almost certainly will happen between now and the term ends that will make Alvin Bragg think, why did I ever get into this in the first place? This guy is doing all these great things. The country's back on track. People are happy, and here I am trying to put the guy in jail. Bragg's a politician, and he's going to have to realize at some point he has shot himself in both feet, and he'll want to get out of it.
Well, Trump has a Trump card. He can pardon himself.
But that's not true, because in New York, you're not a convicted felon until the judge passes the sentence and files the paperwork.
Right.
Hey,
Trump can pardon himself from a federal crime, not from a state crime.
Right.
Ford pardoned Nixon, and Nixon wasn't convicted of anything. Am I right?
Well, he pardoned him for anything he might be convicted of.
I mean, look at Obama. He's got the Peace Prize for what? Doesn't matter now that you do anything.
Yeah.
Well,
there's going to be a pardon. There's going to be a pardon here in the next 58 days, and you know who's going to get it.
Yes, the word is Hunter. That will be the Hunter pardon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our friend Sue in the chat room said that the word is out there that Comcast is looking to sell off MSNBC.
Yes.
And the word is also that The View is going to be canceled.
I hadn't heard that.
Oh, wait a minute. Didn't Whoopi Goldberg say that she needed the job because she was a working woman?
Something like that.
Something to that effect. Yeah, and she's worth about 20 million or something like that. I forget. But
I don't think Whoopi's missed a meal in a long time.
I don't think so either. Well, Mark, what else can we look to see happening?
Keep your eye on this civil service thing, Schedule F, and whoever Trump is going to bring back as director of the Office of Management and Budget, because that's an inside baseball story, but it's crucially important to making it possible for him to do all of these other things that he wants to do in terms of reforming the government. I think that's crucial.
Mark, it is always a pleasure to have you with us. We're going to see you back in 2 weeks, and I'm sure there's a lot more we're going to be laughing at, not just The View.
It's going to be an interesting time. It is definitely going to be.
Oh, people can find you at the Epoch Times, theepochtimes.com. God bless, Mark, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks, and happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Yeah. Curtis, happy Thanksgiving.
Take care.
Check out Mark Tapscott at the Epoch Times. I always download. And we have a new guest here with us for the first time. He is with the National Motorist Association that you can find at motorist.org. Jay Beeber. Good afternoon, Jay. How are you today?
I'm great. Great. Nice to be with you.
Good.
It is our pleasure. Now, I'm usually on top of everything people know, but I used to have AAA. When AAA went strangely to the left and pushed for Obamacare, I even got my mother-in-law off of AAA. And I found AMAC, which I happen to love. But I had never heard about your organization. And usually I'm on top of stuff like this. So I have to apologize.
Maybe I should apologize. Maybe I should apologize that you haven't heard of us.
No. And we do have to get word out about the work that you do, because I'm glad to see someone along the same lines as AMAC, but specifically for motorists. Now, a lot of the things you're fighting are stuff like the Green New Deal. Tell us about your organization and what you're doing here.
Well, we're not fighting the Green New Deal specifically just with regards to, what they want to do in terms of mandating like electric vehicles for cars and making you drive less and all that kind of stuff. So it's related to it. But yeah, so our organization is the only national organization that is fighting for your right to drive your personal automobile free from undue restrictions and costs from the government, and undue enforcement, unreasonable speed limits, automated enforcement, taking away car lanes, taxing you for every mile you drive. Those are sort of the things that we work on, and of course that's all related to the the environmentalist agenda, but specifically it intersects with that. So you've
been around since 1982, which is, I didn't even realize that. You know, like I said, you got to get the word out there.
I know, but we're doing that. But people know our work. Okay, so for example, we're the organization that helped eliminate the 55-mile-an-hour national speed limit. And so that's where the organization started. And as many people may remember, there was a government mandate from the federal government that no state could have a speed limit higher than 55 miles an hour on their roadways. And that was true up until the mid 90s and later 90s, until we were able to successfully get rid of that law at the federal level. And then now people can drive, in most states, faster than 55 miles an hour on the highway. So you can thank the National Motorist Association for that.
Yeah, well, traffic laws, you want to make sure that they're fairly written and reasonably enforced. Now, my listeners know I'm a retired police officer. So when I look at that, I'm the one there enforcing the laws.
Right.
Sometimes you get something, it's like, well, and you're kind of like weighing it. Mm-hmm. And they should be clear cut.
Right. And so with regards to that, for example, when you talk about speed limits, for example, that is a place where the government might build a road to make you feel comfortable driving at one speed. Then they put a much lower speed limit on there, and then they enforce it, oftentimes now with automated enforcement and not police officers. And so basically it's a speed trap. And if you're a police officer, I'm sure you're familiar with speed traps. So this is usually the government making the police's job more difficult because they make the police enforce unreasonable speed limits, and then now they're doing it with automated enforcement where they can issue millions and millions of dollars in tickets and obviously enrich these companies that make these automated ticketing systems.
All right. Now, one of the things you have on your website is about arbitrary traffic stops and unwarranted search and seizures. Mm-hmm. Now, the way I was trained, I had to have a reason why I'm pulling you over. You got a broken tail light. You're missing a license plate. You did an unsafe lane change. No traffic, no turn signal. Things like that. There had to be an actual reason why I stopped you. Mm-hmm. And then, unless I'm arresting you, I can't search your vehicle.
Right.
Unless I see something in plain view, all right, that's one thing. But I have to have a reason for that search. And if I don't have a reason, or if I can't fully articulate it, then I'll go up to the detective and say, hey, listen, I need a search warrant. Help me get one. Or the other one is if I'm arresting you and I'm impounding your car, then I can do a search subsequent to the impoundment, because I have to now make an itemized inventory of what is in the vehicle. So when I return to you, so there has to be some specific reasons for you doing it. So I completely agree with making sure that if that motorist is pulled over, it is for a specific reason.
Right. And what we find a lot of times is that they do maybe a sobriety checkpoint or something like that. I don't know if you were involved in any of that in your job, but we find that, basically, although the Supreme Court has said, yeah, it's okay to do this sort of thing, in terms of our Constitution, really you're basically just pulling everybody over and searching everybody and checking everybody. And that's really not sort of what the Constitution is designed to permit. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court has permitted that. And we find that with regards to police officers, it's much more effective to have police officers out on patrol than all sort of sitting around for a couple of hours at a checkpoint. So, it's those sorts of things that we kind of have an issue with.
Yeah. One of the things I agree with you on specifically is the national ID card. We don't need that. Right. All right. You have a passport, which in a sense is a national ID card. So you don't need anything additional to that. You choose to get a passport or not. But if you have your driver's license or state issued ID card, if you're not driving, that should be sufficient. And I don't see a need for a national ID card, because now it's a way of tracking you.
Yes, that is true. I mean, people say there's a privilege to drive your car, for example. But in our modern society, the freedom to travel is a huge part of all the other freedoms that you get to enjoy. And so if that's restricted in some way or unreasonably restricted, then you're not able to exercise your other freedoms. So we oftentimes have a problem when the government, oftentimes the federal government, kind of crams down these restrictions and says, well, everybody needs this national ID thing, which is, that is really a state thing, and the state should control, who has a license and, and what the reasons are, whether you should or shouldn't drive for particular reasons. But, a national ID can be obviously a better way to surveil people, and obviously we're concerned about that.
Well, Jay,
yeah,
isn't the government actively involved in passive type systems to track you, like on a highway, using your license plate or GPS? They can tell where you went, how long you were there. By credit card, they could tell you what you ordered, who you were with, probably based on their ID. And it just doesn't make sense. You have no freedom, no privacy.
Yeah, and actually it's sort of worse than that, because the automobile manufacturers, the newer cars can track every single thing you do.
I think we're losing Jay. His signal is getting bad. Jay, we have a problem with your connection there.
Okay. Do you need? I don't know what you need me to do to fix that. So, can you hear me or not?
Yeah, we got you there. Sometimes if you have too many things open on your computer, it'll slow it down.
Yeah, I'm on an iPad, so I'm. I don't think there's a whole lot of things open, but it's it could be just a funky connection. So
government interference.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want us to be talking about this.
So whatever you were saying over the last few moments, we didn't get.
All right. Well, so we'll back up. So what I was saying is that the auto manufacturers, especially with new cars, they track every single thing that happens in your vehicle. They know where you go. They know how you get there. They know what time of day it is. They know whether you accelerate too hard or whether you brake too hard, or all of this stuff is being tracked in your car. And then what they do is they sell it to data brokers, and those data brokers then sell that to insurance companies like AAA, and they sell, they can sell it to the federal government. Anybody that wants this information can buy this information, and we're trying to promote laws that would prevent a lot of this sort of thing. But there's also license plate readers, which are out there, and the government is using fairly prolifically. But there's also like Bluetooth. Like you could get a Bluetooth reader, and you could stand on the side of the road or set it up, and you can track this Bluetooth signal, and you can know every time that particular Bluetooth signal went past that location. So even if your Bluetooth is just on in your car, or if it's connected to your entertainment system. So there's a lot of ways in which the government or other actors can track you.
Wow.
It seems that there has to be some kind of balance, because I could see in cases of crime, solving crimes, that helps. But you also have to balance it where we can still maintain some of our privacy.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, they if they're going to collect all this information from you, then there need to be restrictions on how that can be used, when it can be used, and for what purpose. Certainly, if a car is stolen, maybe you want a database of where that car was or whatever. But if you're using it for other purposes to track people, maybe they're going to a gun range. Government doesn't want you to go to a gun range or whatever in certain states. They can track you, and they can find out where you're going. So we have to be careful about what we let the government do in terms of the surveillance, especially with the freedom to travel, because that is a fundamental right.
And I think it should be voluntary, because it's like, what's the young lady that just got killed, Riley? They found her. She had a watch that not only told where she was, her location, but when her heart stopped beating.
Yeah.
So they knew she was dead.
Tragic case, and obviously something that should not have happened. But yeah, I mean, look, my mom, who's 91, she has an Apple Watch, and we can track and make sure she's okay at various times. But that's obviously, and if she falls, it alerts us and it alerts the medical authorities. So so we want this sort of stuff to be voluntary. But we do have to be careful about what the big tech companies and also the government do in terms of collecting all this information about us.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because my mom is 92 and she's got the Fitbit watch.
Right.
And I made sure I turned off a lot of that stuff. And
Mhm.
the main reason for her is how many steps she takes a day and monitors her heart. Yes.
Right.
Anything else like that, I just automatically disconnected it on her because I didn't want that. I didn't want someone to turn around and track her. But it's amazing now because I leave the Bluetooth on my phone.
Mhm.
So when I get in my car, it automatically connects. But you think about leaving it on all the time and how you are so susceptible in today's day and age to be tracked, for people to actually hack in also.
Right.
Leaves you open for hacking. So there's a lot that our new technology is doing may be convenient, but when we think of the consequences of it, and that's why a group like yours that's looking out for us, because we wouldn't think about that.
Exactly, and that's very specific because you mentioned the Fitbit, and you can turn off different things in your car. You can't turn off this tracking. I mean, you can't. You can quote unquote opt out of it if you contact the auto manufacturer and say, hey, I don't want you to collect this data or whatever. But we don't really know if they're actually not collecting it anymore. There's no way to check that. So we really do need some more robust laws in order to protect us in terms of our privacy, and those are the things that we're working on, and we're hoping maybe with the new administration we'll get a little more traction on that.
One of the things you have on here is reasonable highway user fees for maintaining and improving highways, not for financing non-highway projects. Man after my own heart, because I just battled my county on it was originally 1.65 billion, but they knocked it down to 950 million in transportation sales tax.
Oh, so they give you a huge discount.
Yeah, well, we defeated it. We defeated it because it had a lot of stuff in there that had nothing to do with transportation.
Of course.
And they were also throwing in there a lot of these extra luxuries on streets where there are no pedestrians, and they want to make a multi-use pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And then a separate bikeway, which would have required them to do eminent domain on, I can't tell you how many thousands of houses, properties, in some cases placing the roadway and the multi-use pathway right at their front stoop.
Right.
I mean, there's so many stupid things, unless you, the taxpayer, you, the motorist, are paying attention to what your local government's doing, you would get hit with these fees.
Right. You get hit with these fees, and you get hit with the changes to your roadway. So a lot of times, people don't know what's coming, and they come in and they start reimagining your roadway, and all of a sudden you lose car lanes, you lose your ability to get from point A to B in a reasonable manner. They call this complete streets. They have a bunch of different nice names for it, but really what it is, it's socialism for roadways, which is we're going to take roadway space away from cars, and we're going to give it to bicyclists and pedestrians that may not even be in this area. But the new fad is everybody has to have equal access. Everybody has to have, equality, or whatever word that they want to buzzword use, and equity, exactly. And so the idea is, there's too much space given to cars, even though the vast majority of people use cars to get from point A to point B, and not bicycles, and not necessarily walking unless it's really close to your little neighborhood there. But most commuting, for example, 70 to 90% of people, depending on where you are, commute by car to work. So the vast majority of roadway users are car drivers. And unfortunately, they want to take away half the car lanes and give them over to bicyclists. My wife and I have a little joke, because when we see one, we say, oh, look, there's a unicorn, because we rarely ever see them in these bike lanes. And they think, well, if you build enough bike lanes, then all of a sudden people will be like Copenhagen, where everybody's riding around. By bicycle, of course, Copenhagen is like a mile, in terms of its system.
Personally would not be America without our cars.
That's for sure.
And there's no other nation that is so reliant on a personally owned individual, vehicle. You may have one person has the car in the family and everyone uses it. But here in America, basically everyone has a car.
Right.
It's unusual to come across an American who doesn't drive and doesn't have a car, unless you live in Manhattan.
Right.
So
that's exactly true.
Manhattan thinking does not work out here in the boondocks. And again, this is something, we've been fighting in my own county. where they want to take a major egress. Now, I live about a bunch of islands, and for people during a hurricane season or any other emergency, has to travel this one road. It's either one bridge they go over or the other bridge. And when one bridge goes down and traffic has to be diverted over to the second bridge, the last time that happened, I had a friend of mine got stuck there for 6 hours in a 1 mile stretch of roadway. So they want to take from multi-lane down to a single lane. Mind you, there's a college on that road. There's multiple medical offices and a hospital, the main hospital in the north end of this county. And if you do that, now you cannot have emergency vehicles weaving through a single lane of traffic.
But that's true.
And this is what they want to do to us. They want to slow us down, take us out of our vehicles, and make us ride bicycles or walk or take the government buses, whatever they have.
Right. And this has happened in a number of places, and a lot of tragedies have occurred from this. I don't know where you're located specifically, but in a little town called Paradise, California, up in the mountain areas, they had a fire, and after this fire, there was a grand jury investigation about what was going on there, and they said, we need to expand the ability for people to get out of this area if there's a wildfire, because there's only really one route in and out. And instead of doing that, they did the opposite, because they were all into this new ideology of complete streets and nobody should drive a car. And so they actually reduced car lanes. They reduced the number of lanes through on the roadway through the center of town. And there was another wildfire, and 80 some odd people died because they couldn't get out of town. And so when you're talking about a natural disaster, it's obvious that this stuff doesn't work. But even from the day-to-day stuff, when you have to get from point A to point B and slowing everybody down, it reduces your quality of life, it reduces your standard of living, and it reduces your freedom. And this is the thing that I always say, is that cars are one of the greatest inventions that have ever been created in order to improve your freedom and your prosperity. And if you think about what life used to be like when people didn't have cars, they didn't go more than a couple of miles from the town that they were born in, and they lived there their entire lives, and they didn't have access to other opportunities. Whether, if you were in a minority group, let's say women or somebody of color, then those people had many, many less opportunities, because they were obligated to rely on the government for maybe transportation or something like that. And so the personal automobile has created an amazing amount of freedom in our country, and yet it's completely vilified by certain people in the environmental movement and certain people on the fringe left, because they think that if you get in your car, you're destroying the environment, and therefore you shouldn't drive a car. They just hate freedom. They hate middle-class lifestyle. They just hate everything that goes along with that, because they want you to be subservient to the collective.
There's so much in that, because they're also trying to force us now into these electric vehicles. And Biden said by 2030, everyone will have electric vehicle. I'm sorry, not in my garage. First off, the batteries alone. I have a friend of mine lived in Florida. He lives in Florida, not you, Curtis. But his neighbor had an electric vehicle. When the hurricane came through, somehow or other, the battery had been damaged. And the lithium battery went up and took his house out, took the neighbor's house out, and then damaged his house because of the heat of the fire. And you can't put water on this. You have to use a special foam on these electric vehicles. There's stories left and right about people in New York City riding the electric bikes. Over time, those batteries get damaged, water gets in there, and now you've got a fire between your legs. Not a comfortable place to have a fire.
Right, that's true. And also they've burned down a lot of buildings because they store them in the building and they've caught fire. And so you got to really be careful with these batteries. But here's the thing about electric vehicles. The National Motorist Association is fine. We don't have an opinion on what kind of car you should drive. We don't think the federal government or the state government should mandate a car. So if you like an electric vehicle, if it works for you, a lot of people think it's a great second car. Some people like it as their first car. But for the vast majority of people, it doesn't work. And we know that it doesn't work because the sales are way, way, way down. Even with all the subsidies and everything, the mandates don't work. And at some point, reality comes along and it smacks you in the face. And you can't mandate people to use something that doesn't work for them. And that's what whether it's the Biden administration or California or some other states want to do, is they want to mandate the kind of car you drive. And it's un-American, but it's un-freedom oriented. You have to be able to choose that. Otherwise, we're the Soviet Union.
Well, I think they probably would like to go the route of the light bulb, incandescent light bulb, They just say, hey, at a certain point, we're not making no more.
Right.
And they could do the same thing with cars. Say, at a certain point, no more gas cars.
Well,
that's how the government goes, and I don't like that.
Right, but make no mistake about this. It's not just about moving everybody to an electric vehicle. They don't want you to drive a car at all. So there are certain groups, and there's this Green New Deal organization or whatever, and their stated purpose and what they say in their mandate is that they not only believe that people should just drive less, is that you shouldn't, and for environmental reasons, like, oh, well, maybe we should just move to electric vehicles. They think that's greener. It's not really, but they think it is. Okay, but they specifically say moving to an electric vehicle isn't good enough. You have to drive less. They want to reduce your driving by 75%. Think about how much our lives would be impaired if we were forced to drive 75% less in our lives. What could we not do? What could we not have access to under that condition? That's what they want.
For me, my local grocery store is 5 miles away. So anytime I need something, I'm automatically going 10 miles.
Right.
And they want to take that away. They want, oh, no, you're going to take a bicycle. No, we'll give you public transportation. Right. Yet public transportation only goes to main areas. So anyone has to walk, I don't know, several blocks or a mile just to get to that one location to get public transportation. You can't do that in a suburb. You can't do that in a rural area. And our ability, what makes us so American is our freedoms. And the freedom of mobility is one of the tenets. You've got to be able to move around. Our nation was built upon mobility. Even though we expanded on horseback and not in wagons. Right. And now you want to take away, put us back in wagons and horseback?
Right. Well, what do you do about the people who, you got people afraid to drive. There are people afraid to ride a bike, or some people can't. They got one leg or one arm.
My 91-year-old mother is not driving. Is not riding a bicycle.
Right.
or walking.
What do
a
they
couple
do?
Of miles to the grocery store. So,
they bring back the stagecoach or what?
Yeah. Well, look, no, but they want you to go back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, where their main form of mobility might have been a bicycle because things weren't motorized yet. But it's really, again, it's really much more of a thing about, we don't want you to have an impact on the planet, so we don't want you to drive. You mentioned, it doesn't work for people in suburbia and it doesn't work for people in rural areas. They don't want you living in those areas.
No, they don't.
Everybody in a dense urban hellscape where
sustainability.
What was that?
Yeah.
Sustainability. The second they say sustainability,
Project 21.
Run. That's that they want to put 30. You back into the metropolis. They want to be able to control you. And the best way to control you is to limit your ability to move around.
And
that's why they have areas where no cars can go.
Right. Exactly. Because that way you're beholden to the collective. And they have this thing, this ideology called the 15-minute city. This is the new fad. It's basically the same thing that we're just talking about, which is, everybody must live somewhere where you are within 15 minutes of with a bike ride or a walk or transit to, whatever you want. It's going to be a great thing because, it'll be, 15 minutes to anything that you want. But of course, if you think about it, there's no possible way to accomplish that. You can't have the number of choices that we have right now driving our cars. If I want to go to the dentist, how many dentists can be within 15 minutes? I have maybe a choice of one or two at the most, right? But, if I drive my car, I have a choice of however many I can reach within, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour, or whatever. I get a choice of what I want. You can't do that in a 15-minute city because you can't have the number of choices. It's impossible. So will have less choices. Your lives will be worse off. look, if somebody wants to live in Manhattan or, any of the other few cities, maybe, downtown Chicago or whatever, and it's the life they want to live, great. You should live like that, but don't force it on everybody else. I personally, I like suburbia. I like to go to the grocery store. I buy what I need for the week or the 2 weeks or whatever. I don't want to go down to the little bodega every 2 days and buy an apple. That's not the life that I want to live.
Jay, we are out of time. Believe it or not, it went fast. It went fast and fun. And people can find you at motorist.org.
Yes.
There is a link on the show description that people can click on and go and find out. So I want to thank you, and I'm welcoming you back anytime you want to come back on.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
We say good night and God bless. And we will be back next week. And we've got, oh God, I forgot who we got for next week. I think it's Matt Clark. I'm not sure. I have to take a look. Anyway, everyone enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we will see you next week. Until then, we say good night and God bless.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. For the friends we have loved and lost, and we still believe in God we trust, in the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Let's save America. Together we can save America.